Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. So here I am today with my second of two top 10s for 2024 and this time I'm going to focus on games that didn't actually come out this year that I managed to beat, which was quite a lot this year. For example, a couple that didn't make it are Rage and Rage 2, which I finally finished. Those were two of the very first games that I played on my Steam Deck OLED, and they were quite fun but pretty repetitive overall, and neither one had a very satisfactory ending, so they haven't made the cut for my top 10. But without further ado, let's get started looking at the games that have made it. So at number 10 we have a game called Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus, and technically I suppose I could have included it in my top 10 new games because it was actually released on the Switch this year, but that's not where I played it. I played the PS4 version on my PS5, which I think was released in around 2017 or 2018, so it is a pretty old game actually, and visually it shows. It's pretty basic looking. That's because it originated on the Vita, really. But what you've got here is a sort of Persona style JRPG, but instead of turn-based combat, which Persona uses, it's real time, and it's by the makers of the Trails and Ease games, Falcom. So it does share similar sort of graphics to many of their games. And excellent music, which their games are known for. As I say, visually it doesn't quite hold up with a lot of modern games, but that didn't bother me too much. The combat is fun and fast. It does get a little bit samey, just because you don't have too many moves. I mean, you've got light and hard attacks, dodges and blocks and that sort of thing, and then special attacks, and you can switch to two other teammates which you bring into the dungeons with you, and they all have sort of elemental strengths and weaknesses which you have to sort of use against the correct monster type to get sort of maximum damage. So I did enjoy this one. I played it because, well, it had been recommended a few years ago by a channel called The Gaming Shelf, so that's where I picked it up initially, and then just didn't get around to playing it. But I decided to play it this year after playing the number one game on my list and wanting similar games, so that's a hint as what number one might be. But now let's move on to my 9th placed game. So in number ninth place we have Lost Judgment, which might not come as too much of a surprise for those who've watched my previous Game of the Year videos. I am trying to sort of wrap up any Yakuza or Like a Dragon games that I haven't finished, and this was one of them for this year. And this was quite a recent playthrough actually, in November, and overall I did really enjoy it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as the first Judgment game. A lot of that has to do with the main story, because it's quite a sort of seedy tale which involves bullying, suicide, corrupt cops, groping, all sorts of dark stuff. And then, sort of tangentially to that, near the start of the game, you go undercover at a high school to look into the reports of bullying, and you end up sort of being advisor to one club in particular to begin with, the Mystery Research Club, and then that's the excuse to sort of become advisor to 9 other clubs throughout the game, each of which have their own sort of fully fledged mini game that you can do, like dance club, or you get involved with bikers to try and get a student to stop being a biker and come back to school, stuff like that. And all that sort of side content is just as big, if not bigger, than the main story. So it takes a while to finish. And then on top of that, you've got all the usual side cases that your typical Yakuza game has. So it's absolutely stacked full of content. There was an issue that was preventing it from coming to Steam initially, but that got resolved, and that was also sort of given as the reason why we might not get a Judgment 3. But that's resolved, they might do that, but they're quite busy with Pirate Yakuza and Project Century and Virtua Fighter, so it might be a while before we see a third installment for Judgment, but it might come one day. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. In 8th place, I have Trails from Zero, and this initially I considered combining my 8th and 7th place together as one entry because they are sequels to each other. This is the first part, Trails from Zero, and it's the continuation on from Trails in the Sky 1, 2 and 3, but what I like about this is it sort of, as it suggests, it sort of puts you back to zero. You take control of a new protagonist in a new city, Lloyd Irving, who's this chap here, and he becomes a sort of rookie cop for the local PD, Crossbell PD. So you're sort of learning the ropes in this game and taking on quests for people. The quest structure is pretty much similar to the one for the Bracer Guild in the Trails in the Sky games, except in this one you're sort of, the Bracers are sort of your rivals for a lot of the game, but you do team up with some of the older characters. You saw Estelle and Joshua from Trails in the Sky, so it's something of a passing of the torch from the old cast to this new cast in this first half. So let me move on to part 2, and then that brings on to the 7th place game, Trails to Azure, which is the continuation and conclusion of this 2-part installment in the Trails series. I did enjoy this one just a little bit more because it didn't have to do sort of all that early setup with the characters and slow start. You could just sort of get on with things. You got a couple more party members in this one that were not playable in the first half. They were in the story, but not part of your party. So it starts off with them joining up with Crossbell Police Department and several of your older characters being absent, and then gradually as the game goes by, the gang is reunited to go up against the big threat and conclude the story. But parts of this story I think will sort of have an impact on the next arc of the Trails series, which I'm starting in 2025, which is Trails of Cold Steel. I think it does directly sort of cross over with that, so I'm quite excited to get onto that one. But anyway, let's move on. In 6th place we have Control, which has been on my sort of list of shame for a long time. I did buy the game originally myself on the Xbox Series X, or Xbox One at the time I think it was, and played a chunk of it, but never finished it. And then it was given away on PSN, I think, the Ultimate Edition, so I claimed that thinking, oh, I'll play that version because it's technically improved and it's got all the DLC, but never got round to that either. And then the Ultimate Edition was also given away on the Epic Store, so that's where I eventually played it on the Steam Deck. And it does look great on there on the OLED screen, actually. All the sort of dark blacks and red and whites really pops on the OLED screen. And I enjoyed sort of Jessie's story and looking for her brother, and the ties to Alan Wake and the Remedyverse in general. So I'm looking forward to future Remedy games now. I also need to finish Alan Wake 2. That might be a job for 2025. But yeah, Control I'm glad I've finally done it. It was a lot of fun, but quite difficult at times, towards the end at least. Now in 5th place we have a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive game called Astebros. But I played this on the Evercade because there was a double pack with Demons of Asterborg by the same developer. This one is a roguelite platformer where you choose one of 3 character classes which you can switch freely between, and you go into sort of randomised platform dungeons and hack and slash enemies, find loot and resources, free prisoners which go back to your camp and then unlock additional features, each run actually it sort of improves your character a little bit, usually in stuff, loot that you bring back, and more powerful weapons that you can potentially find in runs from then forward. As a roguelite game goes, this isn't particularly difficult. It will probably take 8 to 10 hours to beat. I managed to do absolutely everything in the game in that time, and didn't struggle too much. I'm not that great at rogue games usually, but if they're done well and you actually do sort of improve with each run, then eventually you should be able to get to the end. And this is on the sort of gentler side of the difficulty scale, but a ton of fun, and probably my favourite game that's been released on the Evercade to date. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they come up with something to beat it, but for now, yeah, my favourite Evercade game. So let's move on. This one sort of spanned 2 years really. I think I started playing it in the winter of 2023, but I definitely finished it in 2024. And this is the HD remake of Super Mario RPG on the Switch. This was another sort of game that's been missing from my sort of personal completion list for ever since it came out really, and the reason initially was that it never came out in the UK, but I eventually became a huge fan of the Paper Mario and then the Mario and Luigi series, so it was natural that I would get on well with this. It's a bit more simple in terms of mechanics because those other games came out afterwards and sort of expanded on the ideas that were here, but I love the visuals. It looks really nice. The remake has been done really well on the Switch. It doesn't outstay its welcome at about sort of 30 to 40 hours maximum. They have sort of made quality of life improvements here or there, and a few tweaks, but for the most part, as I understand it, it's the classic game just sort of made to look a lot prettier. So that's my 4th place game, Super Mario RPG for the Nintendo Switch. So let's get into my top 3 now. This is the oldest game on my list. I don't count Super Mario RPG, even though that came out in the 90s originally, because it's a full remaster. But this is Renegade Ops, and it's by Avalanche Studios, who also make the Just Cause series. So there are a lot of similarities with that. I think it uses the Just Cause engine, but pulled out from a top-down viewpoint. So it's got the same sort of explosions and destruction that series is known for. But what this is a twin-stick shooter, very arcadey. Originally came out on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network back in the day. At some point came out on Steam. I don't know if it was straight away or in the years since, but and is still available, luckily, on Steam to buy today. So I think I got it in a bundle, and then I actually paid for some of the DLC as well, because there's a couple of expansions with a couple more levels, and yeah, it's just a load of fun. If you like arcadey blasts that you can pick up and play, then it's perfect and works really, really well as a mobile game. So you can see it came out originally in 2011, so it's pretty old, but I can say it still looks pretty good and runs well on the Steam Deck. In second place, we've got Hades, which I played through on the Switch. This was quite a huge chunk of the year because I only really played it on commutes home from work. So sort of from the spring to the summer, I was playing this a couple of times a week, really, and gradually getting better and better at it, and finally being able to see the end of the story eventually. But as I understand it, there was still more sort of scenes to see even after I had beaten the game, which you have to beat Hades 10 times over really to see the actual ending. So it is quite a time sink, but it's a lot of fun. It looks brilliant on the Switch and runs really well. They've managed to really get to grips with the Switch and fine tune this game to run well on it, which a lot of developers struggle to do, given the sort of aging nature of that hardware. But Supergiant make it look easy. There is a Hades 2 in early access, which I have played a bit, but I think I might hold off till it is completely finished before I play any more of that. And who knows if it will come to the Switch too. I hope it does. But for the meantime, I'm glad I finally crossed Hades off my list, because I did play it when it first came out and sort of bounced off it for some reason. I didn't think it was going to be for me, but this game is really the reason why I then sort of looked for other roguelites to play and ended up playing Astebros and really enjoying that as well. So it's been a sort of a roguelite year for me, although most of them can't even come close to the likes of Hades. So I have bounced off a few others that have just disappointed me because they're not like this. But anyway, let's now move on to my first place game. And in first place is Persona 5 Royal. And this is probably takes the honours of the game that I spent the most time playing in 2024. I think it was 125 hours overall, although another game did come close to that. Yeah, I'm glad I finally played this game. It's one of the best sort of JRPGs ever made. The visual style, the characters, the story, the music, all top notch, and it's really addictive to play as well. So I usually sort of get a bit stressed out when a game has a time limit implied, and technically this one does, but I had no sort of issues sort of managing to stick to that timeline really, as long as you're aware of it and you spend sort of enough time in dungeons making sure you're prepared for the boss, because that time doesn't move on till you sort of leave the dungeon. So yeah, if you sort of grind out your time in the dungeon and make sure you're adequately leveled and have the right persona in your crew, then you shouldn't really struggle too much. It is still quite a challenging game because of the boss fights can be quite demanding. But yeah, if you're a JRPG stalwart, then you should be able to get through it, I would say. Yeah, so before I conclude, I just want to sort of touch upon my plans for the channel for this coming year. So I'll switch back to the big cam temporarily. Yeah, so thank you for watching this second top 10 of mine. Now for a few plans for the channel. I would like to sort of focus on Game Boy games for a little while, because I'm expecting any day now delivery of a Mod Retro Chromatic, which, if you haven't heard of it, is a sort of remake of the original Game Boy, but in an aluminium shell and with an ultra bright screen and an FPGA field programmable gate array inside instead of the old Game Boy hardware. So it does run all actual Game Boy cartridges, and the company Mod Retro are releasing their own range of games as well, and it comes with a brand new fully licensed version of Tetris in the box. So the plan is that I will do an unboxing and review the version of Tetris as a first video when it arrives, and then I've got 3 of their games coming, so I'll spend a bit of time playing those and hopefully review all of those. But I would also like to go back to the old libraries of Game Boy and Game Boy Color games and review a few of those in between the brand new games, because the new games are not cheap. They've got sort of 10 on their website, and I've only been able to afford 3 so far because there's quite a lot of import duty and tax and shipping that I have to pay being in the UK. So I probably won't be able to get all 10 of those anytime soon, but in the meantime I'll review other games. And another thing I would like to do really is go back and conclude the cover tapes, because although I've sort of finished all the Zap issues, there's also about 13 or so issues of Commodore Force which Zap turned into, and they've all got their own cover tapes. So I'd like to do sort of one more run and finish those out, but that's going to take a bit of planning and a bit of work on my behalf to sort of create a new template for the Commodore Force tapes. But yeah, so anyway, that's what I'd like to try and do in 2025. In the meantime, thank you for watching this video and any other videos that you've watched this year. I know I've been fairly light on content this year because I kind of just took a step back from YouTube and trying to make it work, which it isn't really. So I'm not going to sort of put quite as much time as I have done a couple of years ago trying to make it a success, because I just want to keep doing it as a hobby and talk about things for the fun of it. So there'll be fewer things, but I'm not going to give up. So yeah, that brings me to the end now. So thanks for watching. See you on the next video, and in the meantime, take care.